War Room Sports, www.warroomsports.com. What? Ain't no more to it.
Welcome to Inside the War Room on War Room Sports TV. I'm Devin McMillan, and I'm here with my co-host Jimmy Williams and B. Austin. Today we want to talk to you a little bit about what's going down in the NBA this past week. We had a situation where Spurs coach Gregg Popovich, he did what he usually does in resting some of his players, but this time it was a little different. It was on Game 16, and it was during a nationally televised game against the defending champion Miami Heat in Miami. Now, for this trip, his three superstars, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, didn't make the trip, along with their young swingman, Danny Green. Now, fellas, we all know how that went down, but Stern reacted the next day by fining the San Antonio Spurs $250,000 for this so-called violation. First of all, what do you guys think about Popovich's actions? And then we'll get into Commissioner Stern a little bit. Jimmy, what do you think about resting his players during this game?
I mean, if he feels as though that's what's best for his team, that's what he has to do. I think it was their fourth game in 5 nights, and Miami hadn't played since Saturday. And they have a game coming up against Memphis, which is a big game in terms of the Western Conference. So if he felt as though that's what he needed to do to make his team compete at a higher level, then, I mean, he should be able to do what he has to do. He's the coach. He knows what's best for his team. So to answer your question, I don't mind Pop doing that. I understand the other side of it, the business side, and you have fans or whatever, but sometimes what's best for your team conflicts with what's good for the NBA as a business. So it's one of those things where I don't agree with Stern doing this, but I agree with both parties. Stern has to look out for the business side, but Pop has to look out for what's good for his team. So that's where it stands in terms of my feelings towards what Popovich did.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll get to Stern in a minute. B. Austin, what are your feelings on Pop's actions?
Kind of knowing Gregg Popovich as we know him, he has a history with David Stern. They kind of go back and forth, and I thought he saw this as a way and a means to not only rest his aging players, but throw a little salt in the wound that is their kind of back and forth or whatever, and a little spike the way of David Stern. So I think it was Pop being Pop,
Yeah, my opinion on the whole thing with Popovich, I didn't really like it. I agree with you guys in the fact that he's the coach. It's his team, and he can do, whatever he wants. I respect that, and I respect him for even having the gall to do it. At the same time, we also know that just because we respect something and we understand something doesn't really mean that we have to like it. Now, you guys know how I feel about how the NBA is constructed right now with everybody doing the super team thing. Less and less teams are viable. So, like, from a fan's perspective, these nationally televised games pitting two of the top teams in the league against each other, where there's only about 10 good teams in the league, these are the games that people get up to watch. They come on once or twice a week, once on Thursday, maybe one on Friday on ESPN. But, from a fan's perspective, I really didn't like what Pop did. However, we do know that he's done this in the past. Usually it's towards the end of the season. So I kind of question where, in Game 16, these highly paid, professional athletes needing that kind of rest against the defending champs. I mean, do this on a Tuesday versus the Raptors or something.
Well,
that's
yeah,
all I'm saying, but I do respect what he's doing.
That's a good point, because I don't have a problem with teams resting players when it has strategic merit. But my question is twofold. Number one, we're early on in the 2012-2013 season. So how fatigued are players, even the aged and grizzly veterans? Number two, what the F are you resting Danny Green for? Danny Green is 14 years old. He's 14. He doesn't need rest. He doesn't even know when he's tired. He probably doesn't even sleep some games the night before. He goes out, he parties, he comes in and he plays ball. That's what we all did when we were 14.
Listen, I look at this a little different. I think that strategically speaking, it was a good move considering the Memphis game coming up. And this is who they're in a battle for in the Western Conference. And I understand the fact that Miami was a nationally televised game. They're a big super team, but I don't think you can find him for the Miami game and not if he does it like Tuesday against, the Sacramento Kings.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Jimmy, since you put us ahead to that, let's talk about that. Now, at the same time where I can say I don't like what he did as far as resting the guys during a really big game that everybody probably wanted to see, at the same time, I don't see that a fine is warranted in any situation, such as this. What's done is done. Stern and Pop can have their words and their warnings and this and that, but I don't think you fine a team, money for doing what they feel is best for their team. So
I mean, because
it's twofold for me.
I'm just talking about in terms of like, I understand what you were saying that he should have, if this was a different game, you would have felt different from a fan's perspective. But I mean, he has rested his players before, didn't get a fine that time. So my thing is, who is David Stern saying that the people watching the Miami game are more important than the Portland fans who, he rested them against Portland last year? There was no fine.
Yes, he is.
That is what he's saying, and I think that the ratings of that Portland game were just a tad bit different than the ratings on the Miami game.
And another thing is, these are they're in two different conferences, so this is their only trip to Miami. So I know that made them boil even more. But no, I agree. I don't think a fine should have been in order. I think that's you guys spoke about Stern and Popovich's contentious relationship. So this is just, you give me the middle finger, I'm going to give you the middle finger right back. That tit for tat is going to go on between those two. I don't agree with the fine, but I can understand from a fan's perspective why the NBA and why a lot of fans would be upset with what Gregg Popovich did, specifically because of this game. If you want to disrespect the Raptors, because if they did it against a team like the Raptors, I keep bringing up the Raptors, so what?
Man, why you
the
Raptors, man?
The Raptors would feel disrespected, but everybody else would just tell them FOH, like they don't have to play against y'all.
They celebrated the signing of Michael Peters in Toronto. That should tell you all you need to know about the Raptors.
Shout out to all our fans in Toronto because the war room is big in Toronto, so I'm not disrespecting the Raptors. And shout out to my people in Boston too.
Yo, shout out to Toronto. I love y'all up there. Y'all showed us so much love. We love you right back. But your team is garbage.
I think they know that. But B. Austin, what are your thoughts on David Stern's actions?
I think that David Stern is the type of dude when you try and corner him, he's going to deflect that and may even turn the tables on you, even if it's in a juvenile manner. As you can ask Jim Rome when he did the interview with Jim Rome, he found out exactly how vindictive and spiteful David Stern can be. So, there are a couple people in the NBA and outside of the NBA in the media that David Stern has little tiffs with and little arguments, little beefs, and Popovich is one of them. I think that he took the time to make this as close to painful as possible. Obviously, he couldn't fine him $3 million like in the case that he did with the Timberwolves in 2000 with Joe Smith, or something egregious. But I think he took the time to make his point. I'm gonna take $250,000 from you guys.
The crazy part about it is his backups. He only had 9 players because Steven Jackson and somebody else, Kawhi Leonard, were both already injured. So he only went into the game with 9 people dressed. And the crazy part about it is they were very competitive, only lost by 5.
I know.
But at the same time, if everybody knows that those big guns aren't playing, nobody was around to watch that. So I guess it is what it is.
Let me ask you a question, Dale. Now, what if he were to say that those guys were injured and that's why they didn't play? I mean, is he going to start doing that just to try to piss Stern off more? What happens then?
You know what? He probably will, and it'll probably start like a little epidemic around the league when everybody wants to rest people.
Yeah.
The injury reports are going to start looking crazy.
Tim Duncan got a sore toe. What I'm saying? Like,
you come out with little, like he ripped his pinky nail off or something and couldn't play today.
That's what I'm saying. You don't want that to happen. You have to allow the coaches to do what they think is best for their team. They're not trying to hurt their team. But again, it's one of those situations where what's good for the business side may not be good for the team side. And
what's good for the goose isn't necessarily good for the gander.
Yeah, I mean that too.
It's one of those things. If I'm a fan, or if I'm a somebody up in the league office, I'm pissed off at this. You know, if I'm a San Antonio fan, I'm defending them all day because I want my team rested
healthy.
Up.
You want them healthy.
So when the playoff run comes, you know, they can do what they have to do. But it is what it is.
Someone brought a pretty valid point. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it was mentioned that, you know, the guys that are universally recognized as the greats prior to this generation. So we're talking your Magics, Isaiah, of course, the greatest of all time, Wilt, you know, and folks like that. They didn't take games off. They didn't rest. Now, part of that obviously is coaching too, because maybe the coaches didn't employ that strategy back then. But you would never find Magic just taking a game off, or even Larry Bird, God bless him, with no vertebrae in his back. I mean, those dudes played no matter what, whether it was for the love of the game, whether it was competitive greatness, whatever it was, they were playing as close to 82 games as possible, and they weren't going to sit down without a serious injury. It was even pointed to Michael Jordan's 37-game season, or was it 17 games? It was 17 games where he came back from the broken foot for no reason because they weren't making the playoffs.
Yeah, they really didn't want him to come back.
He demanded to play. He said, you won't keep me off the court. I'll scratch one of y'all eyeballs out. Don't try that. So what's the difference between then and now? Because these dudes seem to really just acquiesce to Popovich's.
Oh, yeah, I think they relish in this stuff, but I don't really want to put it on the players because I actually had this discussion with somebody on our Facebook page the other day, facebook.com/War Room Sports. And, you know, the conversation got down to where guys were saying, well, it's the NBA's fault for scheduling back-to-backs. But I'm like, okay, come on now. Let's not start all the soft talk. You know, these guys, especially the guys that sat out of this game, are making like $15 to $20 million per year to play a game that they've played every day in their lives. I don't want to hear that, you know, these world-class athletes can't play back-to-backs. Let's let Pop do what he has to do, but let's not start making excuses for the players now. That's just soft.
I know that this comes off as funny, but I don't even really mean it really funny. Danny Green is 17. Yo, he's 7, and he's down with Thuzio. Cut that check. Like, how can he be tired?
That's probably why he had a prior engagement.
Oh, no, I mean, I blame Tiki.
But Jimmy, wrap this up for us.
I'm not saying that the scheduler should be blamed, but I see what Pop was saying in terms of them having 4 and 5 nights, and Miami was sitting up for several days waiting for the game.
So, Jimmy, so what you're telling me, that they scared? You're scared of Miami?
I'm not saying they're scared of Miami.
That's what I'm saying, because I keep hearing people compare it to what Miami had. Why does that even matter? I mean whether they have 1 night rest, 2 nights rest, they're probably going to run through y'all anyway.
I mean, that honestly, that's probably the truth. But at the end of the day, now all we can do is speculate about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So shout out to Pop, man. Sometimes you just got to fight the powers that be, man. Word to PE.
Word to Chuck.
Right. This man here, he wouldn't have sat out.
No, indeed he wouldn't. He'd have bobbled his head.
This dude, a soldier right here. Brendan Haywood, the best of the best. All right, everybody. This has been another episode of Inside the War Room on War Room Sports TV. And before we leave, you guys know the deal. Don't accept mediocrity and be steadfast in that war against ignorance. Peace.
Kuwait is the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys diversified and educated.